The British and Irish Lions can seal a historic 3-0 series clean sweep in Australia on Saturday, live on Sky Sports.
Yeah, to look ahead to this, delighted to say we're joined by former Lion Dan Biggar. Dan, a very good morning to you, or good evening. I get confused with the time difference. Thank you so much for joining us. Now that the dust has settled, hasn't it, on that second test, how have you reflected on what was an incredible victory for the Lions and what was a superb test match?
Good evening, guys. Yeah, we're just heading into the evening here, and we've had an absolute deluge of rain this afternoon in Sydney, so it hasn't been much fun knocking about Sydney this afternoon. Everyone's been diving inside looking for things to do. I suppose when you reflect, now that the dust has settled, it was just an epic test match, wasn't it? And I think a lot of people had sort of been saying the tour had been not flat, but certainly needed something to give it a bit of a boost. And I think last Saturday at the MCG, over 90,000 people in the stadium, one of the great Lion test matches in terms of jeopardy, intensity, physicality, not knowing who was going to win up until the last minute, the last play of the game. It just, I suppose it gave the tour and the series a real boost in terms of excitement, in terms of jeopardy, in terms of everything that a Lions tour should be. Because I think everybody sort of, after the Brisbane test match in week one, it just felt a little bit, it needed something else, didn't it? It needed a little bit more, and last Saturday at the MCG certainly delivered that. And we haven't seen a huge amount of the Lions players knocking about Sydney. I think they're probably still nursing a few hangovers and resting up a little bit, but I'm sure we'll see them about in the next day or so.
How difficult is it as a player to get out of the mindset of, right, we're 2-0, Lions are 2-0 up, we've won the series, this is brilliant, we're heroes, to get out of that mentality to say, but there is one to go, and imagine how much more heroes we'd be if we win 3-0.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, because I think naturally, you no matter what anybody says coming out of the Lions camp, you are going to just drop off a fraction in terms of your intensity, your training week, your not so much your preparation, but there will be an element of, on Saturday, Saturday is a really fascinating test for me, because it's kind of who wants it more mentally. Forget about physically, because everyone's going to be fine. It's the last game of the season for all the Lions players. Australia just coming into their international season. And I just think it's kind of going to be who wants it more, who wants to win 3-0 or who wants to not get whitewashed 3-0. And I think that'll play the biggest part. But from a Lions point of view, I think they almost need, like, a 3-0 whitewash would be pretty special, wouldn't it? You know, because we've spoken about that Australia really stepped up last weekend, and maybe the opposition previously hasn't quite been where it should have been in terms of the preparation and the tour matches. So I think to come away with a 3-0 defeat or a 3-0 whitewash victory would be quite important for the Lions, and I think Andy Farrell will be driving that in. I don't expect there to be too many changes. I know a lot of people have said they maybe would bring some players in, give players a bench spot, or bring people in to give them a test cap, and I don't think that's what the Lions is about. I think Andy Farrell will stick to as much as possible the 15 and the 23 that played last Saturday, if there's a bumps and bruises, and maybe freshen it up on the bench. But you know, what an achievement it would be if they could go and do a 3-0.
Yeah, on that lineup for this third test, Andy Farrell did make 7 changes, didn't he, ahead of the second test? Obviously that was largely successful. Gary Ringrose missed out though due to concussion. He withdrew himself from consideration. You're saying that you don't expect there to be huge amounts of changes, but is there a couple of spots you could perhaps see him tinkering with?
I think there could well be. I mean, first of all, I mean, an incredible thing from Gary Ringrose to do, and that sort of sets the precedent now, doesn't it, for head injuries and the care and everything that you have to take. For him to rule himself out of becoming a Test Lion and a Test Series winning Lion player is some achievement from Gary, and stands up for everything that the game should be at the minute. But in terms of the lineup and the players who are going to take to the field on Saturday, I expect it to be minimal. You may look to maybe sort of freshen possibly the back row up in terms of, not because of form, but just because it's been such an attritional battle, and maybe Tom Curry's nursing a wrist injury or a hand injury. So could there be a place on the bench or starting for Jack Morgan? Could Henry Pollock or Ben Earl come onto the bench? But I think the Lions are so focused on becoming a whitewashing this Wallaby team that he'll want to just go again in terms of maybe 1 or 2 positional changes in terms of whether people have got bumps and bruises, etc. But I'd expect it to be minimal changes, with maybe a couple of people coming in off the bench depending on how the bodies hold up.
You've touched on this, but if the Lions do win 3-0, they will be legends for the rest of their lives, having done this in a Lions tour. But for Australia, their fans will not take kindly to losing 3-0. How much would it hurt them, and would they ever get over it if they were to lose 3-0?
That's a really good question, because Australia are so used to winning at sport, aren't they? Whether it's cricket, rugby league, rugby union, or maybe not so rugby union over the last couple of years, but I just think it's a mentality here, and I just think that not that they've got more to play for on Saturday, but it's almost like it's a really fascinating mentally how they line up and how they take to the field, because they produce such a high performance emotionally, physically. Can they get back to those heights again with going to South Africa, the back-to-back world champions in Joburg and Cape Town over the next few weeks as well? So I'm not sure that. I think it would be a real disappointment from their point of view if they get 3-0'd. You know, the first test they were comprehensively beaten. The second test was an absolute flip of a coin, a brilliant test match, and it could have gone either way. Probably the Wallabies were the better team, but I suppose it's just how do the Wallabies get themselves up, and how does Joe Schmidt prepare this team? You speak about the Lions making a few changes. I almost think it's maybe the Wallabies that will have to bring in a few changes just to sort of freshen the team up with some energy, with some new guys who perhaps haven't had as much game time, to bring some energy and to bring some positivity into the group after what would be a seriously tough sort of 7 days after the Melbourne test.
Dan, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you go and enjoy an evening in rainy Sydney.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.